Now come back home. Maybe we try to see how we use data types for JavaScript like this. JavaScript gets two types of data types. It gets the primitive data types and non-primitive data types. Primitive data types, now data types may be like string, number, boolean, or symbol. You get a few other ones, but now this one's where we're going to use commonly, where you're going to see from many people code. Now this one's you're going to see most of the time. And I get other ones. I could give them a link when I feel just read up more about all the remaining data types. And you also get these non-primitive data types that are the objects, arrays, and functions. So let me quickly see an example of a string data type. I can scroll down a bit. So we'll just say one let, and then make we call this x. Make we assign them to a string 88. Then make we create more variables. So we could just change this to x, y, z, for example. So we can say x, and I could just change this to y and z. And then make we just change this to something else. So if you just say hello, sorry about that. And then make we say world. What will happen to say I don't define these three variables for here, and all of them are string variables. So if you say one console log x, if you say they give us 88, but this 88 no be number. How? If I say I want 88 plus 2, so if I say 88 plus 2, if you say they give me 88 and 2. But then because now string they give me as value. So this 88 where they here no be real number as 88. So if I try calculate that, I go get string as the value. If we don't know type of something, if you just say type of, then give a space in between there, and then you will constantly say we get type of x. So if you want to know the type of x, if you just say type of x, you go see say it give us string. So if I say that plus 2 now, for example, what we used before, you first say it doesn't give me the wrong calculation. So if you want to do the calculation of that, we're going to need to convert these quotes. So the single quote, the double quote, and the backticks, all of them, they do the same work. So if I change this hello, for example, I use backticks for there. Make we clean this, and then we could check the type of y. You can see, you see they give me string. If we check the type of z, you see they give me string. But if we want to calculate now, that 88 error where we get before, that 88 plus 2, how we going to take to am? Now that time we need the numbers. So the number data type, it is very important. So if we check this 88 now, I could just come out this quote for here. And if we say, make we do x for there, if you say we get 88. Now, if I do 88 plus 2, like we did before, if you say now we get 90. So it they calculate the thing correctly. But what if we say we want to do 88 plus a string? I go down. So if we do like this, you will see say we get that 88 plus the string. That are this hello way they here. Also, in case you want to know, if I comment this hello, for example, and say I want 0.5. Now this 0.5 where I add for there, 88 plus 0.5, you'll get 88.5. So they do the calculation for me. But if I make them as string, let me say if I put quotes or backticks or double quotes, single quotes, it goes still calculate them as string, meaning 0.5 as a string plus this one. Make we go look which other type we need add. Make we look Boolean. So when we say we want to change this 0.5, make we say we want to change them to a Boolean. So obvious to change them for Boolean, it only collect true and false, right? So we go say true. As now Boolean, if you say you don't give us a value, that's +1. So it's valid. So if I say make I check them now, and I say make we check the type of y, if you say y now Boolean. But if you say make we check the type of, make we change this to x. So if you say x, then now this one, now number and type y, now Boolean, which now true or false. Even if I change that to false for here, even if I change that to false, if you say now still Boolean. And of course, the number type still number. Close this to, and then make we duplicate this code, and console log we get string. So these three now the ones where we they use most of the time, where you're going to see all the time. I go see them everywhere. We they call them usually they call them the primitive data types. You see get other primitive data types. So if you still look, null and undefined, those two they a bit confusing. So pay attention. It just means say if you want to define something, if you create a variable, for example, you want the intentional, say you leave value inside that thing. Say this variable, it no get value. You want the intentional. At that time, you go use all this null. Now, when you create a variable like this 88, I say make I clean in value for here. So I not assign them to anything. If you say by default, JavaScript already defined this x as undefined. Already, you've even assigned them to undefined, and you also get the type of undefined. But the problem is say if you do it like this, it's not considered best practice. What thing I mean is say if you want to do anything undefined, just define them like this. Say undefined. And because now let, you fit even still change the value. So I fit say x equals 10, and you go see say e go change to number. I'll make we close am. So if you dey change the value anyhow because now undefined for them. But if you want dey deliberate, say this value, this undefined, now really no get value for now. You fit can change the value later. Then at that time when you go assign x to null. All right. So if you don't assign them to null, you go see say now you dey get an object. That's because everything for JavaScript now object, but now it gets correct value where we feel they work with. So if you even just say x and change them to 50, for example, you go see you see they work. So always they know when to use null and always they know when to use undefined. Make we see how we even use the non-primitive data types. What do I mean by non-primitive data types? So this object, everything else for JavaScript now object, right? So because everything else for JavaScript now object, all these other ones, the array, the function, they live inside the object for JavaScript. Make we clear everything. So we go say let's, and then make we create an object. So I could just say object or obj, make we assign them to curly braces for them. Now, this curly braces where we put for here. Now the definition, now there we go know say we want create an object. So make we just console log obj. If I say obj or object, you fit say we dey get this curly brace for here. So if you say make we check the type, if we say type of, you go see say we don't get the object. So how we go take use this object? You go just say this object, you go like say make it get a, and then you go just assign them to 20, and then you go put a comma there to add more to the list. B, don't forget to add colon, and then you go just assign them to 30 as a number. You fit assign them to string even. So make we make this 30 a string. And if you assign them to booleans. So if you say comma C go be true or false. And if you put any other data type where you want to put. So if you say D go be object even. You even say an array and so on and so forth. So if we say this object, make the name and say any object. So if you say you want access them, if you just say you want to do any object dot D. So if I do that any object or D, if you say they give me still object because we did this object. But if I say okay, I want C, you can say they give me boolean. So if we say any object, it attach itself to this one for the computer or for the memory, and then we go say inside this any object we find the key. So that now what we they call key and value pair. So if we say make we create another variable, make I clean this console log first, and then make we call this variable let any array. All right. To create an array, we'll come say we want to create this bracket with it here. This angle bracket where you see for here, we call them the array. So inside this array, as you don't see for the top example, we could just say make we assign them to 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. So if you just say, okay, now when we get this 1, 2, 3 for here, make we close down, press save, and then make we console log any array. So we go say any, and if we console log out, you see say now we get 1, 2, 3. So how we going to take access this value also? So if I say I want to do any array from 0, number 0, 1, 2, and then so on and so forth. So if I say number 0, you go see say you go give me 1. If I say, make I even change this 1 and 2 to make we say 100. So we're not going to get too confused, and 200, and make we say 300. So we're not going to get too confused. So if you see say this 1, 0, and this 0 here, it will give me 100 for here. If I change this index now to index 1, you can see say now it give me 200. Likewise, if I change them to index 2, it going to give me 300. So array now, what we usually call comma separated list. And this comma separated list, it going to count in values, or it going to check the list from 0 index. The index just be the position of the value, where that position dey for inside the list of all the items within inside the array. So make we say we want 0. And likewise, if you even put anything for array. So if I say I want to change this 200 to string, this 300, I want to change them to hello world as a string, it go still work. So make we say I want come out this 2 and I want check hello world. You go still say for index 2, we get hello world. Likewise, if I do index 1, we get 200. So even if you even add whatever value you get for here, or inside this object, whatever value we get for here, we fit add them into this our array. For example, if you just say now you want to do any object dot, make we say we want to add this a with it here. So we go say any object dot a, and this go give us 20 where they inside this any object, right? So now if I say I want to find items, so remember, so they start from 0. So 0, 1, 2, and 3. So we go say we defined, you just say now they give us 20. Then this 20 for here. Likewise, I even add the 2. So if you just say 20 plus any array if you want, and then we will just assign them to 0. Now number, so now we get 120. So you're supposed to know how you work with your types for JavaScript, right? So I say make we create a function as we do for here. This function where they here. Make we go, make we say let any func, and then make we create a function. So we use the function keyword to create function, and then we go do our parentheses and we go do our curly brace. Now this now function. So what I mean by function? I just mean say function na code wey be say we go dey call am anytime and e go dey work every time. Now like group of code we go join together. For example, I want make this function be function wey be say they give us the results. So this 120 where they here, it go dey give us the result all the time. So if I come here and I say make it give us like this, it go dey give us that value every time. So if I say I want to call this function for here, I go say any func, and then we go use our parentheses to call them. So you go say parentheses. Now it will give us this value, but you dey notice say we dey get undefined for here. That because functions they're supposed to return value. So if I say I want to use the return keyword, you dey see say now we dey get the value of 120 like we did before. So as we call this function for here, we go explain more about functions. But as we call them for here, you see say we fit dey do them anyhow we want them. So if I say I want to do any func, which could give us the 120 bar, I fit even do them any func plus any func again. I fit say any func for here, and you see say any func plus any func, that now 120 plus 120, it will give us 240. Just by making them a function, we dey do this calculation all the time. That's why you need to use functions. Now you get different ways where if you write functions, and you get cleaner ways like this. So no need to do this now. I will explain more about using arguments and how you can make this function more dynamic. But for now, that's all we need to learn. I will see you now for the next video. Thank you.